Okay. Good morning or good evening to all of you. I'm delighted to welcome Professor Francis Boyle today. I am honored that Professor Boyle has been on our board of trustees since 2004. We are grateful for his support and contributions to Arab World Books over the years. I'm also grateful for his invaluable efforts to promote human rights everywhere, which certainly includes the Palestinian people. Professor Boyle is Professor of Law at the University of Illinois. He is a renowned expert on international law and human rights. In his long career, he has served as legal counsel and advisor to several world leaders. In 1993, can I please ask anyone who's not talking to mute their audio, please? He has served as legal counsel and advisor to several world leaders. In 1993, he won 2 orders by the International Court of Justice for the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina against Yugoslavia to cease and desist from committing all acts of genocide against the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina. This was the first time that a lawyer had won 2 such world court orders in one case since the World Court was founded in 1921. He also served as legal advisor to Chairman Yasser Arafat and the Palestine Liberation Organization. He started the Disinvestment Campaign against Israel in 2000, and at the request of the Palestinian Civil Society, he joined with them in 2005 to form the Palestinian Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions, the BDS campaign. He has authored many books, 2 of which have been featured on Arab World Books here. Palestine, Palestinians and International Law, published by Clarity Press in 2003, was our book of the month for November 2005. And I'm proud to have been personally involved with Clarity Press to produce the Arabic edition of this book. I invite you to browse a file online in our Book of the Month archives, including readers' comments and Professor Boyle's response at the time. On our website, you will also find further reading and important links on Professor Boyle and his work, particularly his most recent book, World Politics, Human Rights and International Law, published by Lexington Books in 2021. I will send links on the chat to those of you who are interested. Tonight's conversation will be moderated by Egyptian author and former ambassador to the United States, Mohammed Tawfiq. As with all our webinars, a recording will be uploaded on our YouTube channel and live streamed on Facebook. I wish you all a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Amani. Welcome, Professor Boyle. It's a pleasure to have this conversation with you. Let's start from the beginning. You were just telling me that you passed through the same program in Harvard as a number of political figures such as Henry Kissinger. But instead of choosing a path in world politics, you took the same direction, but probably in the opposite direction. You chose to dedicate your life to human rights and to the cause of human rights. What motivated you to take that course?
Well, assalamu alaikum, and my thanks to Arab World Books for organizing this session, and especially to you, Mr. Ambassador, for getting up at such an early hour in Australia to moderate it. Right, well, it goes back to the fact that my grandfather, Terence Boyle, was a poet and a farmer on the west coast of Ireland, and said by his contemporaries to be the greatest poet in County Kerry, Ireland. When the Irish War of Independence broke out in 1916, my grandfather, who was 50 years old, volunteered to fight with the Irish Republican Army against Britain for Ireland's independence and freedom. My grandmother helped him. His oldest son and namesake, Terence Jr., fought with the IRA. His brother fought with the IRA. as far as we could figure out, the entire Boyle family out there was fighting with the IRA against Britain. As everyone knows, the IRA was the first national liberation movement of the modern era, and succeeded for the most part in getting Ireland's independence and freedom. There's still six counties left to go. But what happened, my grandparents all of a sudden had to leave Ireland. We think because of the Civil War going on there, moved to America. My father was first in his family born here in the United States. But that is the background I come from. It would be as if your grandparents had fought in the American Revolution or the French Revolution or the Algerian Revolution with the FALN. This is how I was raised. Yes.
Fantastic. As I believe Ireland gained its independence in 1922,
Right.
which is the same year as Egypt gained its nominal independence. So let's move to more current affairs. Currently, there are two cases in the International Court of Justice dealing with Israel, the occupation, and the genocide in Gaza. First of all, can you give our participants an idea about what these two cases are and about how relevant the International Court of Justice is in the current system? I remember that in I don't know, it was probably about a month ago that the International Court of Justice instructed Israel to prepare a report after 1 month on the steps that have been requested. I don't know if Israel has done that or not. What happens if Israel doesn't respond? I mean, what are your thoughts on this? And why is this whole issue of International Court of Justice important?
Well, despite what the mainstream news media says to discount the International Court of Justice, saying it's symbolic, it is hard power. To give you an example, back in 1992, Bush Sr. had the Sixth Fleet mobilized off the coast of Libya to attack Libya, off of Tripoli, just like Reagan had done repeatedly, and was sending U.S. jet fighters to penetrate Libyan airspace. And I convinced Colonel Gaddafi to give me the legal authority to sue the United States and Britain at the International Court of Justice to ask for an emergency hearing of the court and provisional measures of protection to stop the attack. When we filed the lawsuit, Bush Sr. ordered the Sixth Fleet to stand down. Now think about that. Mm-hmm. Bush Sr. ordered the entire Sixth Fleet to stand down, and no one was killed on either side. No one died as a result of the Lockerbie dispute. And ultimately, it was settled peacefully between Libya, the United States, and the United Kingdom. Another example, the hard power of the World Court. After I won the first World Court order for Bosnia against Yugoslavia to cease and desist from committing all acts of genocide, I walked out of the grand courtroom into the foyer in front. The whole world news media was there. And I said, holding this order in my hand, the World Court had just determined genocide was going on in Bosnia. All member states, parties to the Genocide Convention, have an obligation to stop this genocide. And I am hereby calling for military intervention by the United States and the NATO states to save the Bosnians from extermination by Yugoslavia. A few hours later, it was announced in Washington, D.C., and NATO headquarters in Brussels that the United States and NATO were instituting an air interdiction zone against Bosnia. They would fly over Bosnia. They would fly their jet fighters over Bosnia and shoot down any Serb planes, helicopter, any other type of aircraft. So the Serbs could no longer exterminate the Bosnians from the sky. That being said, then, so we have to understand this is hard power here. The mainstream news media here in the United States have dismissed all this. The World Court came down with an order on January 26, an order of provisional measures of protection. I won 2 of those for Bosnia, to cease and desist from committing all acts of genocide. That was the first time ever that any government or lawyer had won 2 orders in one case since the World Court was founded in 1921. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire World Court order here. It's quite extensive. As you know, South Africa sued Israel as a matter of courage, integrity, and principle because of the ANC struggle against the criminal apartheid regime in South Africa. President Ramaphosa said that. I know they believe it because I helped the ANC during that struggle against the criminal apartheid regime in South Africa. Their lawyer was a friend of mine and asked me to do some pro bono work for them, which I did, and was extensively involved in the struggle against apartheid here in the United States and internationally. But to make a long story short, there are 2 provisions here. The first, let me get my notes. And these were overwhelmingly in favor of South Africa against Israel for the Palestinians. My orders, too, were overwhelmingly for the Bosnians against Yugoslavia. But the key provisions here, 15-2, and the votes here exceeded my anticipation. As you know, Israel was applying enormous pressure on the World Court and the nation states from which the World Court originated to cave in. And to their credit, they did not. But in the first order, 15-2, that Israel shall cease and desist from committing all acts of genocide against the Palestinians, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily and mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, and imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. I argued all those points as well for the Bosnians twice, and won similar order of protection for the Bosnians. So it was modeled on that. And then the second one, most important, 15 votes to 2, the state of Israel shall ensure with immediate effect that its military does not commit any acts described in point 1 above. So they have been ordered to cease and desist from committing all acts of genocide against the Palestinians for any reason. Again, massive, overwhelming order on behalf of the Palestinians. Now, as you correctly pointed out, the World Court ordered Israel to report back within a month, February 26th. I don't know what they're going to say, or if they will report back. We'll have to see. But obviously, it will be a pack of lies. If you followed the live proceedings at the World Court, which I did all 6 hours by both sides, the Israeli lawyers just lied through their teeth. They even lied about the meaning of the World Court order I won for Bosnia on 8 April 1993. That was critical to the arguments on both sides, since it was both. The British barrister just lied and said my order meant the exact opposite of what it said. But those lies did not prevail with the World Court. The reason being is that the World Court, as its usual practice, took judicial notice of any document or statement produced by any agency or organ of the United Nations organization. They had to. And that's exactly what I did for the Bosnians. Rather than relying on news media sources or things of that nature, South Africa relied on official UN statements. I did too, and the World Court took them into account and rejected all the lies put forth by the Israelis. So if they do produce a report on February 26th with all their lies in there, or they don't, the South African Foreign Minister Pandor has said South Africa will be keeping account of all the violations of the court order, and they will respond to whatever Israel does or does not say on February 26th. So I think that is what's going to happen. In answer to your question, Mr. Ambassador. Now, what happens there, I don't know. I would hope that South Africa, in light of the catastrophe there at Rafah, will ask for more provisional measures of protection on behalf of the Palestinians in Gaza and also in Rafah. This is what they did in the second week of February, 12 February 2024. They asked for a second round of provisional measures of protection on behalf of the people of Rafah in particular. Rafah is a situation right now. They're facing catastrophic genocide there. Israel has threatened to invade Rafah March 10. We have 1.3 million Palestinians there right now at risk. Perhaps 36,000 Palestinians dead already, 100,000 wounded. It'd be catastrophic if Israel attacks Rafah. So South Africa went back a second time asking for provisional measures proprio motu, which means the court can decide for itself what to do. I had also asked the World Court for provisional measures proprio motu. I obtained what was called an Article 74, Paragraph 4 order, my third order, from the president of the court, acting with the powers of the court. What South Africa got, they did not get a second round of provisional measures of protection. It was just too soon between you and me, between the January 26th order and when they filed February 12th. What they got instead was a February 16th decision by the World Court, not an order, but a decision clarifying that their order definitely applied to Rafah. And as far as I can tell here, there were no dissents. This decision specifically referred, quote, in Rafah in particular, unquote. So the decision is there to protect the Palestinians in Rafah. Likewise, they quoted from the UN Secretary General. Remember, the World Court gives judicial notice to anything coming out of the UN. I did the same thing for the Bosnians, and they quoted the UN Secretary General saying the situation in Rafah, quote, would exponentially increase what is already a humanitarian nightmare with untold regional consequences, unquote. Notice exponentially increase. That is correct. Regional consequences. If Israel tries to drive the Palestinians from Rafah into Egypt, we could see a breakdown of the Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Indeed, Egypt has pointed this out. It's a very dangerous situation. I don't think anyone wants to see a war between Egypt and Israel, and also the situation up there on the Lebanese border with Hezbollah. Hezbollah has come to the defense of the Palestinians. The Hamas qualifies as a national liberation movement under Article 1, Paragraph 4 of Additional Protocol 1 to the Four Geneva Conventions of 1949, and it has the right to seek and receive support from the international community, including on the use of force. This is what Hezbollah has done. This is what the de facto government of Yemen has done. Now, let me continue then with this decision by the World Court. They then said that Rafah is, quote, this perilous situation, unquote. This is exactly the language they used in my second World Court order for the Bosnians. We were on the verge of collapse. I can tell you that is true. Indeed, when the war was over, President Izetbegovic gave a press statement conference saying that we almost lost our state in the fall of 1993. All of Bosnia would have been collapsed, and all of Bosnia would have been turned into Srebrenica. Later on, I became the attorney of record for the mothers of Srebrenica and Podrina, and convinced the prosecutor for the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia to indict Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic for almost every crime in the ICTY statute, including 2 counts of genocide. One for genocide in Bosnia in general, and the second for genocide at Srebrenica in particular. So this is a very dangerous situation there in Rafah. We have very little time to stop this attack. And then what the World Court did in this decision, 16 February, is adopt the language they used in my second World Court order, saying this perilous situation, quote, demands immediate and effective implementation of the provisional measures indicated by the court on 26 January, applicable throughout the Gaza Strip, including in Rafah. So they've made it very clear to the entire world, and especially to the Security Council, that Rafah is existentially dangerous. There's no other word for it. Now, under the terms of the United Nations Charter, World Court orders go to the Security Council for enforcement. It's just like any other court. You go to court, you get a judgment, the defendant does not comply. The judge doesn't enforce the order, the sheriff does. Here it is the UN Security Council. Now, we've seen the Americans exercise now 3 vetoes, one this week, against a ceasefire in Gaza. Clearly, the Biden administration is aiding and abetting Israeli genocide against the Palestinians in violation of Article 3E of the Genocide Convention that criminalizes, quote, complicity in genocide. That's exactly what the Biden administration is doing here. Now, from what I have read, as of yesterday, the Palestinians are going to go back into the Security Council. And, well, there are two steps being taken here. The Palestinians, according to Ambassador Riyad Mansour at the Palestinian mission in New York to the UN, they are going to move in the Security Council for full-fledged UN membership in the United Nations organization. I was the one who originally proposed to the Palestinians the creation of the Palestinian state, and I was the legal advisor to His Excellency Chairman Yasser Arafat and the PLO on the Palestinian Declaration of Independence of November 15, 1988. I did all the legal work on that for them. That story is told in my book, Palestine, Palestinians, and International Law. Today, the state of Palestine is recognized de jure as a state by 139 other states. Palestine also has observer state status in the United Nations along the line that Switzerland had before it became a UN member state. We went for full-fledged UN membership, but we had to settle for observer state status because of the pressure by the United States. Now, I did the memo for Chairman Arafat and the PLO on the Uniting for Peace resolution there at the UN General Assembly and how to use it and how to invoke it, which they have done repeatedly. So in the event there is a veto, another veto here, by the United States for Palestine's admission, the Palestinians can then go to the UN General Assembly under the Uniting for Peace resolution. And I have told them, this has been my advice, they should, and have the UN General Assembly admit them as a full-fledged UN member state, despite the U.S. veto. At the end of the day, it is the General Assembly that admits member states, not the Security Council. And the Uniting for Peace resolution is a way actually devised originally by the Americans to overcome arbitrary vetoes at the Security Council at that time by the Soviet Union. I told the Palestinians in Ramallah, again, just as recently as this week, they need to do this because no UN member state has ever been destroyed in the history of the UN. Some of them have collapsed, like my adversary, the former Yugoslavia. It collapsed into 6 different states, but it wasn't destroyed. The Soviet Union collapsed, but it wasn't destroyed. This is important because, in my assessment of the situation, Israel fully intends to destroy Palestine and to drive as many Palestinians into exile as they possibly can. The Palestinians are facing Nakba 2. We had Nakba 1 in 1948. We had the Nakba in 1967. And now we have Nakba 2. And they are going to take full advantage of the Hamas raid on October 7th to inflict Nakba 2 on the Palestinians. Netanyahu has admitted this. So the Palestinians have to protect themselves. And this I found out also in my work for the Bosnians. At the Owen Stoltenberg negotiations in the summer of 1993, I was their lawyer, President Izetbegovic, Foreign Minister Elijah Shani. And at these so-called negotiations at UN headquarters in New York, they tried to rob Bosnia of their UN membership. Rob Bosnia of their UN membership. Why? So they could destroy them, so they could wipe them out and kill them. Now, I prevented this from happening. But that is the power of UN membership, that if the Palestinians can get that full-fledged UN membership, it will be very difficult for the Zionists to destroy them. In addition, the Algerians have said that they are organizing this new meeting of the UN General Assembly. We'll have to see how this plays out. With the Palestinian statement, they're going to go to the Security Council for full-fledged UN membership. So we'll have to see. But in the event of the veto, then I suspect there will be a reconvening of this emergency special session of the UN General Assembly. And I have recommended to the Palestinians the following measure. Whether they will ask for it, I do not know. One, I believe they should go for full-fledged UN membership to protect themselves from being destroyed by Israel with the full support of the United States. And that happened to the Bosnians, by the way. The Owen Stoltenberg plan had the full support of the Clinton White House and U.S. Secretary of State Warren Christopher, who personally intervened to try to stop me from saving the Bosnians at that time. Two, the UN General Assembly can suspend Israel from participation in its activities. This is exactly what the UN General Assembly did to the criminal apartheid regime in South Africa and my adversary, the genocidal Yugoslavia. And in the case of Israel, it's both grounds, apartheid and genocide. Yes, for sure. Third, the UN General Assembly can send up an international criminal tribunal for Israel, organized along the lines of the International Criminal Tribunal for Yugoslavia, where I was the attorney of record again for the mothers of Srebrenica and Predrina and got Milosevic indicted. I initiated a proposal to that effect. I lined up Malaysia and Iran to introduce resolutions in the General Assembly to set up this International Criminal Tribunal for Israel. It took off like wildfire among Arab and Muslim states. Apparently, a major power weighed in to stop it. I would hope that in light of the provisional order of protection and the decision by the World Court that are massive, overwhelming, that this could convince the UN General Assembly to bite the bullet, set up an international criminal tribunal for Israel, and proceed to indict Netanyahu, Smotrich, Gallant, and the rest of them. And that very well might deter further ethnic cleansing there against the Palestinians and Nakba too, which I'm afraid is in the works now as we speak. Third, the UN General Assembly can recommend that UN member states sever diplomatic relations with Israel. 5 states already, I think, have done this. We need more to sever diplomatic relations with Israel. The UN General Assembly could also recommend that other UN member states officially recognize Palestine as a state. Right now, the major geographical holdouts are in Europe and the European Union. Indeed, years ago, the European Union promised that they would recognize the Palestinian state, but so far they haven't. And unfortunately, we see Britain, the Netherlands, Germany in particular, providing arms, equipment, and supplies to Israel to exterminate the Palestinians. This has led, and Canada, this has led Nicaragua to threaten to sue Canada, Britain, the Netherlands, and Germany for aiding and abetting genocide against the Palestinians. We sent a démarche to President Ortega and his wife, encouraging them to sue these states for aiding and abetting genocide against the Palestinians. Unfortunately, the United States, it can be sued, but the prospects there are not great because of U.S. reservation to the Genocide Convention. But sure, they're guilty as sin. They deserve to be sued. The UN General Assembly can also recommend that UN member states adopt economic sanctions against Israel. They could specify what these sanctions would be, and certainly further endorse the Palestinian BDS campaign against Israel. As I was introduced, yes, I started this in November 2000 because I had been part of the struggle against the criminal apartheid regime in South Africa. And as a result of all that, in many cases, my conclusion was that we had a criminal apartheid regime in Israel, and we needed the same remedy: divestment, disinvestment. And then Palestinian Civil Society contacted me in 2005, said they wanted to expand it to boycott and sanctions, and would I go in with them? And I said, sure, of course. So we have So these are all the steps that could be undertaken within the next 2 weeks against Israel on the basis of the World Court order and the World Court decision. I really cannot predict what is going to happen. The Palestinians have my advice, what I think they should do. Some other states have my advice, but I don't know.
Well, thank you very much. That's a comprehensive outlook, really, and even more, it's a detailed plan of action, which I'm sure will be carefully considered by many parties. I'm not going to try to follow up on all the points that you raised, but there are 2 points that I hope you can clarify. The first is the second case that the International Court of Justice is considering against Israel, which deals with the cause, the reason why all these problems are there, which is the occupation itself. And the second issue that you mentioned in passing is the issue of bringing to justice a number of Israeli leaders, which takes us immediately to the International Criminal Court. So can you give us your thoughts on these 2 issues, the second case and the International Criminal Court, and what is the difference between the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I forgot to respond to your question about the proceedings this week. This is an advisory opinion by the UN General Assembly to the International Court of Justice on the entire complex of issues related to Israel's illegal aggression and occupation of Palestine. Back in 1987, the PLO had me speak at UN headquarters in New York on the 20th anniversary of the Six-Day War. And in my speech, I said, the time has now come for the Palestinians to unilaterally proclaim your own state, and then to move towards international recognition and to follow the precedent of Namibia, Southwest Africa. Mm-hmm. And I had studied all about Namibia at Harvard Law School. And I briefly outlined in my speech how to do this. The PLO then asked me to write up a memo explaining all this to them, which I did. You can read in my Palestinian book. They published it. I didn't. I submitted it to them, attorney-client conference. By the way, I've never charged the Palestinians a penny for any of the work I've done for them. It's all been pro bono. But one of the points I sketched out there was following in the pathway of Namibia from being occupied by the criminal apartheid regime of South Africa to independence. And one of the key steps Namibia took, well, the supporters of Namibia took, was to ask for an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice on the illegal criminal occupation of Southwest Africa by the criminal apartheid regime in South Africa, and what would be the consequences. And this led to a comprehensive decision, advisory opinion by the International Court of Justice saying, well, whatever basis South Africa might have had for the mandate going back to the League of Nations over Southwest Africa is over, and they are under an obligation to withdraw. And that's exactly what is being done here. If you read the request for the advisory opinion by the UN General Assembly, it's written like a legal brief, not just a simple advisory opinion, telling the World Court exactly what they want and citing, again, UN sources, official UN sources, which the World Court will have to pay judicial notice to. So the Palestinians are trying to do here what was done for Namibia, and to get a comprehensive advisory opinion saying the Zionists must leave occupied Palestine and what the consequences will be. And that Namibia advisory opinion had a very significant role to play in producing the independent state of Namibia as we know it today, and a full-fledged membership in the United Nations organization. During their liberation struggle, I also gave at their request pro bono advice to SWAPO. So the Palestinians are following in the footsteps here of that Namibia opinion. I was surprised, given the political complexion of the judges in the first order, that it was so overwhelmingly in favor of the Palestinians. And I think we'll probably even get a better advisory opinion. The president now is from Lebanon. I don't know him personally. He's a professor of international law. He's pro-Palestinian. Also, the American judge, the last American judge, was a State Department apparatchik. This current judge did some work for the State Department, but she taught international human rights law at Columbia Law School, and her case book is fair and reasonable when it comes to the Palestinians. So I think we will get an advisory opinion from the court. It will be a while because there's so many issues involved, but it will have major consequences for the Palestinians on their behalf across the board. And we can only begin, just like happened with Namibia, that this will have an important role to play. I hope that answers your question. Now, as for the second question, the International Criminal Court, after Operation Cast Lead concluded in January of 2009, I advised Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to accept the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court for Palestine and the Palestinians, giving the International Criminal Court jurisdiction to prosecute anyone within Palestine who committed war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, whether they are Israelis or Palestinians or foreigners or whoever. What happened? Nothing. The International Criminal Court has not lifted one finger to help the Palestinians since 2009. Not one finger. 3 prosecutors. Moreno Campo, he filed the complaint the first time, Bensouda, and now Karim Khan. No help to the Palestinians. If the International Criminal Court had started indicting Israeli leaders in 2009 for Operation Cast Lead, we would not very well not be at this point where we are today. And all the death and destruction inflicted on the Palestinians since Operation 2009 perhaps could have been avoided. And it was not, and it has not. So I hold everyone there at the International Criminal Court. They have Palestinian blood on their hands. It's that simple. There's no other word for it. So, the Palestinians tried. They have extensive documentation in there. I can't say I'm overly optimistic at all. As a matter of fact, sorry, President Putin invades Ukraine, and of course they hop to it immediately and indict him. Nothing to Israeli leaders. And indeed, before Putin, the International Criminal Court had not indicted one white person. Think about that.
Mhm.
They had not indicted one American, one Brit, one European, one Israeli, none. All they did basically was go after black tin pot dictators in Africa, which were inconsequential. But when it comes to the major war criminals in the world, they've done nothing. So I don't think that we can expect the International Criminal Court to come to the defense, the help of the Palestinians. They haven't done anything since 2009.
Thank you very much for this very clear and honest opinion. I have so many different subjects I'd like to discuss with you, but since we have a number of participants who I'm sure would like to make some contributions or ask questions, I'll ask you one last question before moving on to our participants. It's more on the personal side. Have you found that the strong positions you have taken, basically on the side of the weak and the downtrodden and the general side of human rights, have you paid the price for that? Do you feel that personally that has come at a cost?
Well, of course, I've been ever since I entered Harvard in 1971, September, supporting the Palestinians ardently. Zionists have accused me of being everything but a child molester and have treated me the same way. I've been completely blackballed out of the international law profession, the American legal profession, the American academic world, and of course the mainstream news media. I mean, all the mainstream news media know exactly who I am and my expertise. They're not going to have me on there to talk about the Palestinians. Just last week, a major TV network here in the United States called me up for an extensive consultation on the fact this reporter was in Gaza and had seen Israel bulldoze up a massive cemetery there. And all the bodies were disappeared. They were gone. And he saw it with his own eyes. He had been embedded with the IDF, and he wanted to know if this was a war crime. So I spent a lot of time. I researched the whole thing, went through it all, gave him the authority. What happened? It was never reported. I mean, not only me, I didn't think they'd report me, but they never reported the massive destruction of the Palestinian cemetery, the fact that all the bodies had disappeared, and that this was a war crime, if not a crime against humanity, and a further act of genocide. Well, okay, I don't get paid to give interviews anyway, but that's just the way it works. But I knew that when I decided to stand up for the Palestinians. I knew I would have to pay a price, and I paid it. So there it is.
Well, I'm sure many people around the world appreciate your positions, and we certainly need more people like yourself who are willing.
Well, I want to say others have paid a higher price. You saw my friend Norman Finkelstein, the Zionists destroyed his career completely at DePaul. Stephen Slater here at the University of Illinois, the Zionists completely destroyed his career and reduced him to a bus driver. So there's a long history of professors whose total careers have been destroyed for criticizing Israel. Indeed, AIPAC and ADL maintain enemies lists, and they target professors who speak up and criticize Israel for destruction of their academic careers. I was able to prevent. They used to be so bold about it. ADL and AIPAC published their enemies list, and I was able to stop the publication of second editions. But they still maintain the enemies list, and yes, they set out to destroy. You see this happening now with professors and other intellectuals and people who are speaking out in favor of a ceasefire. And on behalf of the Palestinians, they get targeted by Zionists for destruction of their careers, even students, the doxing of students. This is going on. This is almost as bad as the McCarthy era dealing with communism. Take Harvard, my alma mater there. Right now, Harvard is launching a witch hunt against Palestinian students and their supporters, complete with a rat line. I regret to say Harvard has always been that bad. My friend Edward Said was offered Harvard's top honcho chair in comparative literature. Edward had gotten his PhD there in the Harvard Graduate School of Arts and Sciences ahead of me. And the Palestinians asked me to meet with Edward to convince him to take a Harvard chair. As the Palestinians saw it, Edward at Columbia and Edward at Harvard would be the distinction between Kissinger and Brzezinski. I saw it that way too, but I also wanted to have Edward teaching at Harvard. So I spent an entire evening having dinner with Edward at a Chinese restaurant on Columbia University campus, trying to convince Edward Said to take an endowed chair from Harvard. Now, most professors would give their right arm to take an endowed chair from Harvard. Edward would have nothing about it. I can be quite convincing. And finally, after all these arguments, Edward said to me that Harvard, quote, was so anti-Palestinian, unquote, that, quote, it would thwart my intellectual creativity, unquote, to return to Harvard and accept their top honcho chair in comparative literature. 2 years ago, they effected a constructive discharge on Cornell West, the very prominent African-American scholar, because of his support for the Palestinians. So, if Harvard does this, you can imagine what's happening all over the country right now with witch hunting Palestinian students and their supporters demanding a ceasefire. And that's, of course, that's basically what the World Court said here. 15-2, the state of Israel shall ensure with immediate effect that its military does not commit any of the acts of genocide described above. And as Foreign Minister Pandor said in their press conference after the order, there is no way Israel can continue to conduct its military activities against the Palestinians in Gaza. But there it is. And witch hunting of students and faculty, prominent intellectuals, etc., for simply calling for a ceasefire, which has been pretty much ordered now de facto by the World Court.
Thank you for a very sobering description of the situation. Let's move to to our participants. Nahla Hannu had asked for the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ambassador Mohammed. I'd like to thank you and Amani for this wonderful session. And I'd like to express my respect and appreciation for Mr. Boyle for your valuable work, I'd say on behalf of humanity, really, in several areas of conflict against criminal military machine of aggression. I have many questions, but I'm going to limit myself to maybe to allow others to participate. So my first question is, even if the International Court of Justice orders Israel to ceasefire, Israel can just, not fire one more bullet, but still commit a genocide by starving the people of Gaza. So does this require like another round of court hearings or a new order, or is starvation actually part of the order and what's described in the order, as you said?
Yes, answer, and I'm sorry, I didn't clarify this because of the time limitations in my presentation. Sure. Yes, in the World Court Order, it tracks the language of Article 2, paragraph C of the Genocide Convention that prohibits, quote, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Clearly, that would include starvation. And as a matter of fact, in the hearings before the World Court and in their pleadings, South Africa quoted the Israeli ministers who have said there'll be nothing, no food, no water, no medicine, no nothing. So in answer to your question, I believe that is certainly contemplated in this order, yes. And that vote 15-2, and it tracks the language of the Genocide Convention itself, Article 2, paragraph C.
Thank you very much. And if I may have a second question, do you believe that practically there is a mechanism by the Security Council or the General Assembly to actually force Israel to comply in case it doesn't?
Yes, I've mentioned it appears, maybe the Bidenites will change their mind. I don't know. But I've mentioned the steps that the UN General Assembly can take under the Uniting for Peace resolution to adopt very serious sanctions against Israel, suspending it from participation in the activities of the UN General Assembly. Second, setting up an international criminal tribunal for Israel, start prosecuting all these people as soon as possible. Third, recommending comprehensive economic sanctions by all UN member states. Several have already terminated diplomatic relations with Israel. They can also recommend that. So I believe, and of course, admitting Palestine as a full-fledged UN member state, which would give Palestinians the protection of UN membership. No UN member state has been dissolved. So comprehensive economic sanctions can be taken by Israel. We'll have to see what, if anything, the UN General Assembly decides to do here. I really don't know, ma'am.
Damun?
Thank you.
Okay.
But they all have my advice. They all have my advice of what can be done and what should be done. Whether the governments do it, I really don't know.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Our friend Maisa Jayusi, please go ahead. Can you please unmute?
Maisa, you're muted. Maisa, you're muted.
I think she's frozen, like maybe she lost connection.
Okay.
Okay. We'll give her a chance to come back. Any other comments or questions? I'd like to warn you that our time is running out. Oh, she's back again. Go ahead.
I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry about that. I want to thank Your Excellency Amani and Professor Boyle, and I want you to briefly tell me how do you read the situation of UNRWA currently, and how do you read the attack on UNRWA and the Israeli accusing UNRWA staff of being part of the attacks, and how do you read that putting the situation in more complication at this stage? Thank you very much. And what can the Palestinian Authority do in this regard? Thank you.
Yes, as I said, I think the Zionist attack on UNRWA is part of Nakba too. They have to get rid of UNRWA to get rid of the Palestinians and to steal all their land. And let me say here, the opinion of His Excellency Dr. Haider Abdel-Shafi, my client and friend, head of the Palestinian delegation to the Middle East peace negotiations. In the summer before he died, I knew he was dying and did not have much time. So I called him up to have a final conversation and get his wisdom in Gaza, head of the Palestinian Red Crescent there. And in the course of this conversation, Abdel-Shafi, who spent the 2 years negotiating with the Zionists and did everything humanly possible to stop Oslo. I work with Abdel-Shafi to the bitter end to try to stop Oslo. But Abdel-Shafi told me the Zionists have not changed their agenda since the Baal Conference of 1897. They want all of Palestine with as few Palestinians as possible. Netanyahu has made this clear. He just recently, he wants all of Palestine from the river to the sea. He said this. So the elimination, this attack on UNRWA is part of that agenda. And it is clear that those governments that have terminated funding of UNRWA are also themselves guilty of complicity in genocide in violation of Article 3, Paragraph E of the Genocide Convention. In addition, many of the states that have terminated assistance for UNRWA are also party to the Rome Statute for the International Criminal Court that incorporates complicity in genocide in the Rome Statute. And all of these states are required to have domestic implementing legislation for the Rome Statute. So it might be possible for lawyers in those countries to pursue government officials there for aiding and abetting Israeli genocide against the Palestinians. But that would depend on the national laws of each one of these states. And I'm happy to work with, I have worked with lawyers in countries around the world to give whatever advice and assistance I can. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, as our time is running out, I have one more comment from our friend Omneya. Please go ahead. Please.
Good evening. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this so sophisticated and yeah, it's a very, very tough specialty for me. My field had been always scientific, but I know that going into a legal or legit specialities, especially in a subject very important like international law, it is looking like a football game using terminologies. So it's very sophisticated for me. But I have two questions. The first question is why South Africa took the initiative to the legal action against Israel and not Ireland, for example. And the other question that I have, if Palestinians have been preparing themselves for this, why the Palestinian Authority didn't take the chance to prevent couples from having children for 4 or 5 years, so long they knew that they have been preparing for this. And when I ask these questions, I found myself, I'm thinking outside the box, and still legal actions or politics, when it's taking active steps, it has certain methodology of advancement of the terminology and of this kind of line of thinking and art of legal issues in the universities, because sometimes there are, I'm looking for a very decent and easy decisions, and in the same time, the procedures that have been taken, it's only regulations and decisions and terminologies, and the genocide will happen sooner or later. And these have been always the story. That's my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ma'am, in answer to your first question, it made perfect sense to me why South Africa took the initiative here. As I said, I did pro bono legal work for the ANC at their request, and I was actively involved in the struggle against the criminal apartheid regime in South Africa, going back to my days at Harvard Law School. And then when I came here, I won the first anti-apartheid protest case in the United States, Chicago versus Streeter in 1985. And the South Africa and the Palestinians have been mutually supportive back and forth. Mandela and Arafat were friends. And Mandela made many comments in support of Palestinian independence. Indeed, they had the same enemy. It was Israel. Israel was working in cahoots with the criminal apartheid regime of South Africa against the ANC and against the Black people in South Africa. The South Africans knew that full well. You know, birds of a feather flock together, one criminal apartheid regime with another criminal apartheid regime. So if you listen to the speech by President Ramaphosa, he made it perfectly clear this is why South Africa has taken this step. Why not Ireland, my country? I have dual nationality as well with Ireland. I have an Irish passport because of my it's a little bitty country. There's only so much Ireland can do. South Africa is the most powerful country on the entire continent of Africa, politically, diplomatically, economically, etc. So, as you know, the Zionists, Israel's already threatened retaliation against South Africa. They're standing strong. I think they will. As for legal measures by the Palestinians, well, what can I say? I met with President Arafat back in over in Gaza in 1997 on the 10th anniversary of the outbreak of the First Intifada. And I gave him a memo recommending a lawsuit against Israel at the World Court. I've stayed with the Palestinians repeatedly recommending this. They've said they might sue. They were threatened. It's that simple. Threatened by Israel, threatened by the Americans. So there is obvious limitations on what they can do. I remember I was with the Palestinian delegation sitting on the floor of the UN General Assembly when we were going to upgrade our status. And we had the votes. And then the US ambassador, Thomas Pickering, got up and threatened the entire world, the entire UN General Assembly, and said, if you pass this resolution and upgrade Palestine's status, we, the United States, will pull down the entire United Nations organization. He said that. I was sitting right there. Whereupon the Palestinian ambassador and Shafiq al-Hut, who was there as the personal representative of President Arafat, consulted with each other. And the ambassador Zuzi Terzi got up in the podium of the UN General Assembly. Is very diplomatic what he said. He didn't say the U.S. ambassador had threatened everyone. What he said was, we have heard the statement by the U.S. ambassador, and we withdraw our resolution. Now, this is the power that the Palestinians are up against and have always been up against. Well, let me say this. Eventually, we got that upgraded status in 2012 to observer state status. That's the power the United States government has always applied against the Palestinians. They're up against the most powerful country in the world, and Israel, one of the most powerful countries in the world. So there's enormous military, economic, and diplomatic power against them. In my opinion, the Palestinians have always had truth and justice on their side. And that is why they have gotten this far and are still there today. But there's no guarantee that truth and justice will prevail. Look what happened to Libya. I spent 30 years trying to help Libya and Colonel Gaddafi, and they were destroyed, and they're destroyed today. So my opinion, we all have to rally to the support of the Palestinians in whatever way we can in their moment of existential crisis here is what they're facing, in my opinion.
Professor, we could I have before ending this meeting, I have a quick question from Rehab, who is asking you about Israel's intentions from the actions they are taking in Gaza.
Yes, my reading, we have to understand what happened in 1948, the Nakba. There was a war plan, Plan Dalit. We know that for a fact. All that was planned out, what was done. And in 1967, the Nakba, there was a pre-existing war plan that was executed against Egypt and the surrounding Arab states, outright aggression, theft of land, ethnic cleansing, which first propelled me to study the Middle East and reach the conclusions that I have. There is a war plan here. All the reports are that the United States, Egypt, and others told the Israeli government that Hamas was planning an attack. And they let it happen anyway. They used it, and they have used it as an excuse to execute their war plan for Nakba II against the Palestinians. And I believe, myself personally, that's what we are seeing unfolding. They will try to ethnically cleanse the people of Gaza. If that succeeds, they will move on to the West Bank. And if that succeeds, they will move on to the Palestinians of Israel. That I'm afraid this is the direction we're going, and we have to stop it.
Well, thank you very much for that very sobering comment. I realize that you have other commitments, and so I think we could extend this forever, but the only thing I can do now is to thank you. Thank you certainly for having made the time to have this conversation with us. But more importantly, thank you for your commitment, the commitment that's really a lifelong commitment that you have made. And I wish you all the best, and I wish you success in the endeavors, the different endeavors that you are engaged in for the benefit of humanity and a better future for our children.
Shukran. Thank you very much for your kind comments, and Mr. Ambassador for being here today. Thank you. And Arab World
Thank you.
Books for organizing the
Thank you.
session. And I do hope we can all resolve to do something in our personal capacities, whether our talents are, to help the Palestinians out at this existential moment in their history.
I'd also like to thank
Thank
all
you.
our participants. Certainly thanks to Arab World Books. This has been a very interesting and illuminating discussion for me. I hope you have enjoyed it. It will be available on YouTube for anyone who has missed part of it. Thank you very much, and see you next time in one of these discussions.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Thank you
Shukran.
for
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Shukran.